Hello, hello, hello. We're just going to give it one more second for a couple of people to join in. Welcome, everybody, to the latest Lilypad AMA. We are graced today by the presence of some fantastic human beings. We have Ryan from the engineering team here to help talk about the open source program that we've just launched, very excited about. And then, of course, the usual Logan Lentz, also from the engineering team, here to give us all the deep dives on what's going on the network, what's going on with the team. So anyway, we do have our, question or, the live chat open. So please feel free to ask questions like throughout. That's the main point of this AMA is to, answer your questions in person. So I'm going to do a little chatting here about what's going on at Lilypad, but please feel free to jump in at any time and, ask us questions. All right. Well, with that, let's get into it. So, as always, we start out with a little bit of what is Lilypad. So, the vision for Lilypad is to build an accessible, efficient, permissionless open compute network. The idea here is we're building a global compute network and a marketplace that developers and businesses can use to not only run arbitrary programs but run AI programs. We believe that compute networks of today that are being used to run AI models are typically controlled and run by a few very large cloud businesses. And so we believe that in addition to using the power of the people to aggregate compute power into sort of a compute marketplace, we believe that providing sort of a cloud alternative for ML engineers, for businesses, for startups, that's an alternative compute platform to the traditional cloud companies is really essential for human progress. So as it says, we're trying to enable internet scale data processing for AI and ML and other arbitrary compute, unleashing idle processing power, ideally GPUs from across the world. So real quick, jumping into how Lilypad actually works, it matches supply and demand with this open compute network, right? And so GPUs come and they join our network, permissionless network, and they earn rewards for providing compute capacity. And then on the other side, users come and pay in Lilypad tokens to use the network. Now, of course, we are in testnet, so the Lilypad token hasn't launched yet, but we are currently in testnet, and we are basically on the road to launching our mainnet not in the not too distant future. I see here in the chat, hello, Rodebrecht, great to see you. I hope I said your name correctly. We were discussing internally if that was the correct way to pronounce your name, so do let us know. But yeah, we really appreciate your work. This is our most recent Lilypad ambassador, which we'll get into here in a second, but great to see you. So anyway, the Lilypad sort of stack is made up of a bunch of important pieces, right? So at the very top, we have sort of our partnerships and integrations. This is where we end up working with teams like the Rare Compute Project. We work with teams like Titan Network. We work with teams like Parasail, doing everything from useful plugins, useful integrations to sharing compute resources. I believe teams like Spheron are looking at adding GPUs to our network, which is awesome. On top of or below that, we want to make it extremely easy to use the network. So the value layers and services are really something that our team has spent a lot of time thinking about and a lot of effort to put to make sure that the tools are built out for the different types of needs. So currently we have some smart contracts you can use to run a Lilypad job. We also have an API that's currently under maintenance, but I know that will be out soon, where you can actually just make calls simply using the Lilypad CLI. Of course, we have the Lilypad CLI that you can run locally on your machine, which is super awesome. You basically can run a stable diffusion job with one command, one line of code. It's really simple. And so you insert a prompt and you're good to go. And so our aim is to make it incredibly easy to really just run arbitrary Docker images. At the end of the day, a Lilypad module, you can think of it as, or all it is really a Docker image that has an AI model or some other type of program in it that we make it really easy to run in a serverless fashion. And so that's what the whole sort of developer tool stack is sort of geared towards. And then part of the roadmap is this module marketplace. And so we will be incentivizing this as part of the incentivized testnet. Moving forward in the future, we'll be announcing that soon. But the intention here is sort of like a Hugging Face type platform where we have all these different AI models that have been set up to run on Lilypad, and the community can come and just simply run them. Or in addition to that, simply use the network to add your own models and add to the module marketplace. So we're really excited about the module marketplace. We believe that it's part of this open source AI, open compute sort of world that needs to be built out. And so anyway, we're very excited to support that. So our big call to action, apart from, well, there's a lot of calls to action today, but one of the first big ones is, of course, join the Lilypad Incentive Net. So the incentivized testnet has been running. It's been awesome. I actually haven't updated this image here, but there's a lot more than 800 node count on the network, which has been amazing to see. The growth has been awesome. And I'm sure, as some of you have realized or have heard, we have even run into a little bit of scaling issues that we've been sort of addressing over the last week or two. And so it's been incredible to see the growth, and we can't thank the community enough for all the participation. But anyway, the incentivized testnet has been deployed on Arbitrum. And so that's really the exciting value that Lilypad brings, is the compute runs on untrusted servers, computers all around the world, GPUs all around the world. And then the sort of a hash of the compute job that has been run gets saved on the blockchain, on Arbitrum, which of course is built on Ethereum. And so we're providing, off-chain compute with on-chain guarantees, which is a very unique offering, and we really believe is extremely important for like the vision of open source AI, but also just sort of the future of cloud computing. So how can you participate? Really simple. You run a node. This is a NVIDIA GPU intensive process at the moment. We do only support NVIDIA. We are looking at other architectures, but yeah, we have some really clear documentation. And jump on, join the network, and start earning Lilybit rewards credits. As you can see in the bottom right, we have this leaderboard showing a global map of all the nodes across the world. In addition to that, there's a leaderboard tab where you can see the actual earnings, the Lilybit credits that you've earned. And the intention, the Lilybit credits will be redeemable for Lilypad ERC20 tokens upon mainnet launch. Tons of resources for RPs. Of course, I mentioned the leaderboard. The main sort of source of truth for the Lilybits program is that blog in the middle. Lilybit rewards have landed. So do check that out if you're interested in the math behind how Lilybit rewards actually work and how we've decided to do things. We are sort of in the works of changing some things. We've gotten some awesome feedback from the community. For example, some more announcements are going to come out about the slashing mechanism. We've internally discussed it and decided to make some changes. So I'm sure the community will be happy about that. More on that soon. And then, of course, please jump into our Discord. We have this awesome I Need Help section, which is, you can think of it as sort of a support section. You can open up a, sort of like a ticket and get something on our team's radar. Please, though, we do have a sort of a guide for opening up tickets in the I Need Help section. It's really, really helpful for our team to know everything from the hardware you're running, the OS you're using, the Lilypad version, even stuff about your networking. And, do you have enough tokens? Like, there's a big checklist. So please do follow that and let us know in your ticket if all these different things, because otherwise it's pretty difficult for our team to check on your situation. Of course, wallet address is a big one too. And then there's the docs and tons of other information about how to do things. All right, the big announcement for today is something we announced earlier this week, is the Lilypad open source program. And so we've invited Brian here to join. Brian and I kind of spun up the components of the program in terms of like deciding which repos need sort of our contribution guide and our code of conduct and all of our important issue templates and PR templates. And so anyway, yeah, welcome, Brian. Yeah, we're really excited. I know actually the program has been announced now, but that doesn't mean that we haven't had contributions. I believe we've already had a couple of contributions to the main Lilypad repo.
Indeed, we have. Yeah. So Rodebrecht, who is with us, is the first to slip into the official open source program before it was official and was announced. He and Kabula Rasa had noticed that some of our contribution guide had started mentioning it. So we had a bit of a soft release for it, as it were. And then even before that, Kabula Rasa made an open source PR contribution before we even had a program. It was one that affected our release pipeline, and he was incredibly patient and wonderful while I was a skittish rabbit about our release pipeline. Worried about
that's an important one. That's okay to be a little, a little wary of,
yeah, so I mean, it's wonderful that even just before we've announced it, we already have folks who are jumping in and making contributions. And Now we've officially, announced the program. We're planning tomorrow to select a few issues that we're going to tag as community issues. So if you see an issue in the main Lilypad repo that's tagged as a community issue, then that means that it's part of our open source program, and we do intend to provide Lilybit rewards for it, Lilybit points. And we have a few other repos aside from the main repo that we're accepting open source contributions in. And maybe I'll pass it back to you, Alex, to discuss those.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, and also like Brian, I really appreciate the time that you've put in. I know you've gotten on the phone, I believe, with Rodabrick, one of the contributors. So, I mean, our team is here. We are like a completely open source project. Well, 99% open source project, and we really do want the community to be involved in development here. So, thank you for jumping on that, Brian. And I actually should preface, Brian is one of the core devs at Lilypad. He is one of our insanely talented, incredible developers. So I should have just mentioned that beforehand. So thanks for the time today, Brian. But anyway, the other repos. So of course, the Lilypad main repo is probably the primary place to contribute. We've also fully open sourced the Windows RP, and so our team is mostly going to be only supporting the sort of the typical Linux RP, and then we've released sort of a Docker guide on how to run a Lilypad RP using Docker, which of course can be used to run on Windows. And so the whole Windows resource provider repo is going to be fully open source and not supported by our team. We're just, we're a small team. We're spread across a lot of issues, and so we've decided to make that decision. Logan, you got something?
Right. Just to clarify, whoever was using the previous Windows RP version, like Alex said, that's just going to be open source. So if you still would like to use it, feel free. It's still there. We just can't spend very much time. But the Docker version, if you do have a Windows rig or a Windows computer and you would like to run a Lilypad node on it, our Docker version, the reason why we're focusing our support on that is just maintaining the Docker version will be a lot more simple. And so we're very excited to use Docker for hopefully, possibly all of our nodes in the future. And so, yeah, very excited about that. Try to improve our runtime dependencies, etc.
Yeah. No, I have to say, Logan and I have a bunch of GPUs, and we've been running Lilypad resource providers. And I have to say, setting up a Docker RP was much more straightforward. Not that it's not. It's pretty straightforward to set up an RP using just on Linux standard. But yeah, the Docker steps was just very straightforward. Very, I don't want to say easy, but it was it took much less time. So
the biggest pain point is just making sure Docker is working correctly, I think. And then once that's all once that's good, but there's ways we can even improve that. So
yeah. I remember I had some issues with like my CUDA version wasn't matching. That was it the CUDA toolkit, CUDA container toolkit, I believe, or NVIDIA container toolkit. So there was just a little bit of a mismatch, I think, with what I had installed versus what the image was expecting. Yeah. So I remember that.
We should make memes about I've seen memes already, but there's a lot of memes about like, oh, I got NVIDIA container toolkit installed, and it's like somebody's like celebrating.
Yeah. Anyway, and then we've got the Lilypad tools repo. So right now there's a couple things in there. I mean, the main thing in there is the Proxmox guide that Logan put together for running. If your machine has multiple GPUs on it, Lilypad doesn't quite support that, but you can set up multiple resource providers on one machine using that Proxmox guide. And so if you want to check out the Lilypad tools repo, that's also there. I believe there's one or two other interesting things in there. And then of course the awesome Lilypad repo for anything and everything awesome. Our intention there actually is to hand over that repo to the community. Brian had a great idea to set up a separate GitHub organization and help let our ambassadors sort of take over that. And I'm sure the ambassadors are hearing this for the first time, but this is something that we are probably going to be doing, in the near term, because we want this to be as community, led as possible. So we'll keep an eye out for that. But there's a ton of stuff in the awesome Lilypad repo. I mean, there's examples. There's Kabula Rasa, one of the awesome contributors Brian mentioned, created a node monitoring tool, like a Telegram bot, to basically send notifications to your phone when your Lilypad resource provider goes down. I believe they also made a script a program to to check the Lilypad version and make sure it's up to date. I believe that was also something that was created. So we can't thank the community enough. It's been awesome our team is, we're building out incentivized testnet, solving issues that come in. At the same time, we're really focused on mainnet, right? I mean, we have mainnet launch coming up on the horizon, and so we're taking the learnings from the incentivized testnet and using that, to sort of determine the roadmap for the mainnet launch. And so all of this stuff happening at once it's been awesome. I think our team's having a great time. We've got some incredible people working together, but there's only so much you could do in a day, right? And so the ambassador program and then the open source program has been an incredible extension of our efforts via the community. And that's just been awesome, and we only want to grow it. And of course, there's a little bit rewards available for these kinds of contributions. So anyways, Brian mentioned, we will be marking issues specifically as community issues. I believe, we're doing that tomorrow. So I think around once a week, we're going to look at that. And of course, look at some, if people are submitting stuff, take a look at that and make assessments of whether or not, it would be a good community issue if it hasn't been marked as a community issue. So, keep an eye out for that. It'll just be a community tag. And in the contribution guide, you'll see that specifically if an issue has been tagged with a community tag, then we will be providing. We're discussing internally exactly how we're going to do it, but we believe it'll be sort of a set amount of Lilypad rewards that seems fair for the given task. And we're sort of using the reward. We're looking at sort of what the different GPUs are earning per day, and maybe we're potentially going to be using that as a benchmark of sort of what's a fair way to evaluate the work being put by an RP, how many rewards they're earning, versus an open source contributor, the work that's being put there, how many rewards should be earned there. And so if the community has ideas on that, we're open, but we do want to make it really straightforward and simple. And so we'll be figuring that out and announcing that soon. But Brian, I just wanted to ask you, I mean, I know that we're going to be specifically marking issues as community issues, but I think you and I talked we don't want to just limit that, or we don't want that to just be the only limiting factor, right? If someone sees an issue they want to take up, should we just have them, I think we're just going to have them sort of bring it up in opening an issue on the main repo, or I forget actually what we decided on that.
Yeah, that's right. So, the idea is that, you in the community may recognize or see something that's missing that we haven't noticed, or maybe we did and we got too busy and didn't get around to it, whatever. And so if you see something like that, I mean, this could be either a feature or a bug fix, open an issue, and in the issue, just mention that you'd like to work on it, and if you're interested in rewards on it, and we'll look at the issue and think about if we think it's appropriate for an incentivized piece of work, and if it is, then we'll tag it with a community issue. Generally, I think we're going to be pretty flexible about that. I mean, we aren't going to reward things like a typo fix or that kind of thing that are trivial. But if you have a good idea and we think it's worth bringing into the code base, then we're pretty likely to reward it.
Yeah, totally. Typos are, we like typo fixes, but yes. To Brian's point, it's probably not the rewards, the right thing for rewards. So yeah,
right. The typo fix is awesome enough to where it just makes your GitHub look really cool, and you've helped this, so that's pretty awesome.
That's reward enough.
Right. What do you think, Brian, about there's since there's so much software, especially so much code within Lilypad, I think there's been some recommendations to kind of add a lot of pieces. What is your purview on that? I'm somebody and I have an idea of we can add some, I think it was one of Rodobrecht's ideas to add a security scanner within our GitHub possibly. What's your opinion on that?
Well, there are kind of a couple things. I mean, there's the main code base, and then there's supporting code, and supporting code is automation, adding unit tests to our CI, and that kind of stuff. Generally, if it's sort of a positive thing on the way that the community runs and the way that we run the project, that's all fine. In terms of contributions to the main repo, we think about it in terms of not just is it a cool feature or is it something that's neat, but is it something that we think fits into the big picture, and is it something that we think we can maintain? Because at the end of the day, we have to, keep up with the, whatever code is added. And so, some of the issues, if it's like a, contribution to the main code, we may bring it to the rest of the engineering team and kind of discuss it a bit, and decide if it's a contribution that we'd like to have added to the code base.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also along those lines, I know in the contribution guide, we've asked to we have that testing sort of parameters of like, we would like, ideally, especially for the main Lilypad repo, we would ideally like people to test, or at least be able to show us either how they tested it or how we could test it, right? Is that, Brian, how we're thinking about it?
Yeah, that's right. So any pull requests have to give us pretty clear instructions about how to test the change. So we want to, make it easy for us to sort of check out and see, does it work the way that it's expected?
Yeah.
I see there's a comment in the chat from Rodebrecht, and you're right that there are certain kinds of issues that aren't really convenient for the community to work on. Like if it's something like you need access to our infrastructure, or you need to get to GitHub secrets or something, then those aren't really, those are issues that the Lilypad team should take on. I don't think we need to tag them explicitly that way. I think that if you see the community tag, that we've evaluated it for that, and we think it's something that the community can take on. Otherwise, just propose it, and we may say, well, we don't really think that this is a good one for community, or we may say, yeah, that's great, let's go for it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's because everyone on the team has their own sort of tasks at the moment, right? And so it's the more help from the community we get in terms of like the testing that you've done, or even just the completeness of the issue that you put in, the pull request that you put in, like that just saves us so much time, and it really helps us to keep things moving. Because again, all of us have a whole list of tasks we're already doing, and so we want to be able to accommodate as many issues from the community that come up as possible. And so let's just work together to sort of make that really smooth.
And we have a nice set of pull request templates that you created, Alex, that will help to guide you through that process and show you, set expectations. What do we expect from a pull request?
Totally, yeah. And all the instructions are in the contributing guide. So there's a contributing.md and all the open repos that we mentioned that will walk you through sort of what the expectations are, how to sort of guide you through writing the issue or creating the pull request. There's even like the local, so for testing purposes, we have a local Lilypad network that can be run. There's even a guide for that. And so totally. So just follow through what we put there, and then we'll work together on that. But very exciting stuff. Again, like we've already had a bunch of open source contributors, so it's great. It's great to see that we didn't even have to announce the program for the contributors to start coming in, and so hopefully that means we're doing something good. And we can't thank everyone enough for it. So I can't do an AMA without mentioning the Lilypad ambassadors, which sort of is a good segue from the open source group, because a lot of the ambassadors, or a lot of the first contributors, have been ambassadors for the network. So the ambassador program has been created to really reward community members who are giving a lot of whether it's time or contributions or just answering questions in GitHub in Discord, to the network. And so I believe at the moment we have 6 ambassadors, and they have special access to be able to chat with the team and sort of like triage issues with the team, and they also are eligible for Lilypad rewards that we'll be giving out. The rewards that ambassadors will be getting is sort of in the same loop as the open source group, and so we're figuring that out internally, sort of the mechanics and the actual numbers behind what that would look like. But we're really excited to be able to actually reward our ambassadors. And on the right, you can see some of the contributions that we had to highlight. Most of them are from, I believe, Kabula Rasa. And I did that first. Okay, so it doesn't say it, but the first link is the PR that Rodebrecht added for, I believe it was unit testing on the main Lilypad repo. So anyway, we gotta highlight our ambassadors. So Kabula Rasa worked on that WSL native RP, the RP monitoring service that I mentioned. And then if you want to check out your resource provider and see how many, you can check on Arbiscan, but I believe Kabula Rasa made this no check website is for checking to see how many POWs you've run in a day. which as an RP, which is super valuable to know in aggregate, because that was based on how many POWs you're running. That ends up determining how many rewards you get on a daily basis. And so sometimes the RPs have issues with either they're running an old version or there's some other issue on the RP, and so these monitoring services have been really helpful to make sure that rewards are being earned and that jobs are running through. So another super exciting thing that I've mentioned on the last AMA, but I have to mention again, is our meme-a-thon is still on. And so please, everyone contribute. I don't know, are we allowed on the team to also participate? I don't know, Logan and Brian, I don't know if you guys know.
I think we should be able to, but we are not entitled to any of the rewards. Even if we win, we have to forfeit the rewards. That should be mandatory. That's my opinion.
I agree with that. No, I agree with that. Yeah. So I mean, I know the team has been throwing around some pretty dank memes, and so that's a good point, Logan. But yeah, there's $500 up for grabs for, I believe it's the first top 3 prizes, and this is through our Galaxy. So if you haven't checked out, I believe this is the either second or third Galaxy Quest that we've launched on our community platform, and it's been really awesome to see how much flow of activity we're seeing on that Galaxy Quest, sort of engaging the community in a bunch of different ways and getting people sort of involved in the network, getting them into the Discord, asking questions, and then eventually jumping on as RPs or even end users. So definitely jump into the meme-a-thon. Don't be shy. Okay, so I have mentioned this already, but I thought I would just throw it on here again because we have had a lot of questions about the running an RP on Windows. Again, our team currently is only going to be supporting either running on Linux or using the Docker resources that we mentioned before. Again, this is just how we decided internally to kind of prioritize resources, and we do have a community contribution from a couple of Rasa, as we mentioned. There's also an experimental tool from the team that you can check out that has been fully open sourced. We won't be supporting it, and so sorry about that. But at the end of the day, we kind of have to prioritize on what's really most important and sort of what's looking like the future of how things are being run on the network. And as we mentioned, the Docker RP is really a great way to run a Lilypad resource provider, even on Linux. And so for that, we have the docs have been updated. So you'll notice under running a node, run a node, now there's Linux and Docker. So we're super happy to finally been able to get that into the docs. That there, a lot of testing went into that, a lot of troubleshooting. Still, a lot of sort of experimenting is going on with that on the back end. And then we also have a blog that we put out on our blog about this. And so pretty much just the same thing, like a guide on kind of how to do it. But there's a little more information there about what's going on. So at the end of the day, we want everyone on this call or on this live stream, everyone who's watching this in the future, to get involved. There's a lot of ways to do it. You don't have to just be a node on the network. Jump into our Discord, check out our website. We're really active on socials, and check out our docs. We really spend a lot of time internally. Well, hopefully not too much time, but we have prioritized making sure the docs are really good. Like our CEO Ali and the team generally is very focused on very strong developer experience, which is why the 3 of us are here right now on this call. Which is why we have an awesome DevRel team. Shout out to Phil, and who works with me on the DevRel side of things. And so it's the community feedback has been incredible, and it's essential to provide good developer experience, right? And so if we're building things in a bubble, in a vacuum, we don't. We may not be serving everyone's needs. And so check out all this stuff. On GitHub, we also have, I should have linked it, but we have a discussion for RPs on sort of the RP experience. So I believe if you go to just the main Lilypad organization on GitHub, there's a discussion there about RP feedback. And so if you do have feedback, like this is where we're collecting feedback, for example, on the slashing mechanism. So there's a bunch of topics in there that the community has been discussing. And it's one of the main places we look to see, okay, gauging sort of how people are feeling about things, and then that feedback gets pulled back into the engineering team, and then we decide sort of next steps. So please keep doing that. So I think we've done a lot of talking here, and this is an AMA. Typically, we're supposed to be letting everybody else talk, right? And so if we do have any other questions, please feel free to bring them up. But I believe that's really all we wanted to present today. I guess typically what we do now, Logan, we kind of jump into what's the latest at Lilypad, what is going on. And so I know that we have a big version release coming out today, actually. And so I don't know, Logan, what do you think? Where should we start? I mean, we have been doing some building, some firefighting, new releases coming out. I don't know. There's definitely a lot of exciting stuff.
Right. I think maybe it probably would be important to tell our fellow RP resource providers that they're, like we've seen in the Discord channel, like we've seen everywhere, there has been some scaling problems with some of our tech on the back end. So please bear with us. We are fixing it all. We have gone through, and a lot of our RPs that were missing funds have been hopefully made whole again. All of our math is pretty sound. If you have any problems, definitely let us know.
Yeah.
Yeah, other than that, than us firefighting and making sure our APIs are working the correct way?
I guess, well, you mentioned it, right? So a big update 2 days ago was we have sort of implemented the first stages of fixing the proof of work inconsistencies for resource providers. Another stage of updates is coming soon to sort of address that, but we did actually do a whole internal investigation. So about 2 weeks ago, maybe it was 3, when the community started noticing like real inconsistencies with the proof of work, we actually started a sort of like a priority 0 sort of sprint internally to first investigate, okay, what's going on? We do have to wade through like, okay, is this misconfigurations on the RP side? Is this our problem? Once we did identify that we were having some scaling problems, like Logan said, our team actually put together like a whole action plan and began implementing that plan over the last week or so. Shout out to Brian, shout out to Narb, shout out to Alvin, shout out to like the whole engineering team, really, who sort of ended up dropping some things to actually like go work on this and get this done quickly. And so, 2 days ago, we announced in the Discord that we did a retroactive, points. We provided retroactive points to affected RPs. I believe there were about 470 RPs on the list that between August 15th and September 5th were affected by, basically inconsistencies of running the proof of work mechanism that they're supposed to run every hour. And so, of course, if that happens, then you miss out on rewards. And if you also don't run proof of works, then our system considers your RP, offline, which then leads to slashing. And so not only were you not earning rewards, but you're also getting slashed. And so we sort of have rectified that, made RPs whole for those days. And we're aware that like the inconsistencies are still sort of popping up in some small cases. And so we will be after September 5th, so today's the 11th, right? So at least for the next, the days after September 5th to today, probably until, I don't want to put a date on it, but as long as we're seeing these inconsistencies and until we push the ultimate sort of final updates to our proof of work mechanism, we will make sure that RPs are made whole for lost rewards. So do know that, do keep that in mind. We appreciate everyone, bringing up the issues and sort of letting us know what's going on, but we will rectify any lost rewards. Cool. So yeah, I mean, in addition to that, I guess, Brian, we could sort of jump the gun on the release today and talk about this awesome new Bacalao sort of check that you've added to the resource provider. Are we allowed to talk about it before it gets pushed?
Sure, yeah. I wish I could take credit, but it was actually James that added the check. Essentially, what it does, so we've noticed in a few cases that some resource providers don't have Bacalao running. Maybe it crashed on them. Something went wrong. And so what this check does is it checks when you start your resource provider node, it checks to make sure the Bacalao is running and that it's running at version 1.3.2. This has probably been mentioned in previous AMAs, but Bacalao version 1.3.2 is the last version that has embedded IPFS, which we currently rely on. We're working on migrating to newer versions, and we have a few folks who have asked us, can we move to 1.4.0? So we do have plans to do that, but for the moment, everybody should be running Bacalao 1.3.2. And what this release will do is it will, check that Bacalao is running and it's running at the correct version. And if it isn't, your resource provider node will crash with an error message telling you to, make sure Bacalao is up and at the right version.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I think that's such an impactful, push, because without block law running correctly, your RP can't run a job, which is the whole reason for this whole thing, right? And so, that affects exactly how the network runs. That affects the rewards. That affects everything. So, that actually, yeah. Anyway, so thanks, Brian. Yeah, that's like a very, very exciting push, and we will be announcing that later today, and we'll ask all the RPs in the network to update to the latest version. I believe it's 2.5.0. And yeah, that's really essential, right? To otherwise, jobs just don't run. So that's great. And sort of actually along the lines, Brian, of some of the issues or some of the questions that RPs have asked, one of the questions on a different note, one of the questions that RPs have asked is like, hey, did I earn rewards for this day? You can check the leaderboard to make sure that you have earned rewards, but it's not we're not providing time series data at the moment, and so you just have like a number every day at 10 I believe it's 10 minutes past the hour at or what is it, like 12 a.m. UTC. So just right in the morning, 10 minutes past the hour, the Lilypad rewards updates. And so what we're working on in the background, Brian, I believe you are working with someone on the team on this, is to provide sort of like
Ron.
an authenticated with Ron. Okay, cool. Yeah, provide like an authenticated API to sort of be able to check your wallet ID in a day and see how many points was given on that day.
No authentication necessary.
Okay.
It will be a public dashboard. We're just kind of quickly putting together a dashboard in Grafana, so it's not going to be like the most beautiful thing in the world. We're just using what the default Grafana components are, but we're still sorting out the details. But at the moment, what we think the interface will be is you enter your wallet address, you enter a start date and an end date, and it will show you total points over that period, and give you like a table where you can select each day and see how many points that you earned on that day. And yeah, we points are spread over different phases. So one thing that we're going to do is have a legend that displays what the phases are, so that you can look at you can put a date range, start and end, and the range that you entered may span multiple different phases. So we'll just give you like a hint of like, this is what the phases are if you're interested in that piece of information. But we think mostly it's just like folks want to know, did I earn points on this day? And this should make it pretty straightforward to go ahead and just check on your own.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's such an awesome push, because it lines up so well with like our whole internal sort of like mission of transparency, right? And so that's like, yeah, that's awesome. And the phases, just to give everyone a little background, you can read it in the Lilypad's sort of summary that we've got on the blog. But I believe it's every 2 weeks, the total number of Lilypad rewards available for RPs decreases by 10%. And so like joining the network early on, i.e. right now, is you're much more incentivized to do that versus joining the network a month from now. And so that's what Brian was mentioning about the phases, is you want to be able to see I guess that's how the actual rewards that are provided are sort of broken down. And so, yeah, that's awesome to be able to search by that, and then be able to see, of course, that helps for troubleshooting in our current scenario. Like we're dealing with some like inconsistencies, some scaling issues. And so that's super helpful for that. And then in the long run, it's just great for people to know, right? And yeah, no stress. You were saying that it's like bare bones on the Grafana. I think everyone would be cool with that. I mean, that sounds great to me. Also, we're in testnet, so that sounds awesome.
Yeah, we'd be happy with plain text, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. So cool. All right. Well, yeah. I mean, I think that pretty much covers what's going on at the network, what's the latest. We are Logan's working on a module guide on how to build Lilypad modules. We do have a guide in our docs, but I think through trial and error, through a lot of the work on our team that's been going on testing modules and figuring out the right ways to build modules, we're going to provide sort of a more comprehensive guide on taking some code or taking an AI model or whatever, creating a Lilypad module that runs in the network. Logan, do you want to talk just like real quick about sort of why we're doing that. I know that every model is a little different, of course. Some models are huge in terms of the size, how many gigabytes. Like, there's a lot of nuances, right? So I think that's why we're sort of recreating the guide, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. To give a little more context, when you're running jobs or you're running modules, is we call them at Lilypad, when you're running them on the network, there's quite a lot of intricacies that go into that, such as as the person running the model or module on the GPUs, that module will I, as the runner, will kind of create somewhat of a reputation. And so if I'm running a module on the network that's not really working, that's kind of bad for the network. So something that we came up with a few months ago that's really awesome is we have a local test environment. I think a few people have put a lot of work into this, thankfully. But so instead of having to test modules, like I have a Docker model running, so I can do SDXL. Now I want to extrapolate it to the Lilypad network. Instead of having to troubleshoot within the network directly, we have a set of local tools that you can spin up, real simple, and you can run you can run a local Lilypad testnet. I think Brian came up with the name of LocalNet. I think that was the
LocalNet. Yeah.
I've been applying that name as well, and I do enjoy it. A good name is everything. But so instead of having to really worry and I need to have Lilypad funds ready to test this model, you can have it all locally and test it on your GPU locally, which is very, very exciting. So we have a whole guide on the intricacies and the to-dos of that. I'm not quite sure if it's quite finished yet for the open community. There's probably still a lot of things to iron out, but yeah, very, very helpful, very useful to us. I definitely like having a very large GPU sitting next to me to be able to test this. And so if you're one of the lucky ones running a node on the network, this could be super fun for you because, instead of having to figure this out, you can figure it out locally and not have to spend any money. Yeah. All of it is extrapolated as well. We don't need any Doppler tokens or any team tokens. So it's all open, which I'm very, very excited about.
And we found that this is essential for end users, small and medium businesses, startups, even enterprises we're talking to. You need to be able to test your modules before pushing to production, right? You need to know, is this working, right? And a huge piece of this puzzle is, as I mentioned, is the module marketplace, right? We really care. I mean, right now we're focused on aggregating supply, but very soon we'll be focused on aggregating demand. And we're already seeing a lot of demand coming in from the community, from the world, but also from partners that we've sort of pulled together over the last month or two. And so, the common denominator is okay, how can I test what I'm doing? Because there's all these nuances, there's all these added levels that I'm trying to sort of incorporate. And so, the LocalNet has been awesome. We're running it in DevRel too, so that we can actually test, what's going on. Hey Christian, welcome. We actually, you're late. We gave you a shout out earlier, but it's all good. But no, I'm joking. Christian's from our engineering team. He's awesome. He rocks. So thanks for coming. But anyway, module building, module testing, now we have this good sized cloud network, and so we want to put it to full use. And so more guides are going to be coming out, as Logan mentioned, the sort of building a module. Again, we have a building the module guide, but sort of a more detailed version, including local net testing and all that, will be coming ASAP. And so, do keep an eye out for that.
I think, it might be worth noting too is since there is a great number of requirements within our resource providers running, when we tell people, if you want to set up a resource provider, you need this, this, and this, we will be doing quite a lot of enforcing. And I think enforcing is kind of a heavy word, maybe, or a strict word. I think we'll be doing a lot of checking to make sure our nodes are just, once these modules start running through the network, we need to make sure that all of the nodes can actually handle it. And so there will be quite a lot of changes, like the changes we were discussing earlier, to make sure that back layout is running correctly. We'll have quite a plethora of that, as well as we already do. We have quite a lot of telemetry and metrics coming through to tell us what's going on. We will certainly be adding more, doing a lot more checking, juggling run times.
Yeah, actually, that's a good segue into something we announced on the last AMA, which is the telemetry release that Brian spearheaded. So basically adding traces to Lilypad jobs, right? We have noticed that sometimes jobs could get stuck at various stages of, from submission all the way through to completion. There's quite a few steps, and so Brian has graciously added the ability for us internally to look at, okay, when did a job come in? Was it accepted? Was it processed? Did it have a successful output? Where did it get stuck in any of those stages? And we don't collect any information about the inputs or the outputs in terms of what the actual output is, what the actual input is. And so we built it in a way that's privacy preserving, really giving us sort of like high level information about what's going on without really tracking everyone and everything on the network. So we definitely appreciate that, Brian. That was a huge push for that now DevRel can use to actually help people on the network troubleshoot. So if you haven't updated to the latest version 2.4.0, I would ask that you update to make sure that we can collect those traces. That said, if you haven't updated at this exact moment, 2.5.0 is coming, will be released later today in the next hour or two. And so, that also has all of that pushed in there. Brian, I know you're working on adding traces to the solver, sort of to the deal making engine of Lilypad. Super excited for that too. That'll help us get a little more visibility.
Yeah. I mean, the solver really does a lot of important work in terms of examining a job offer and a resource offer to make sure that it's going to be a good deal, and that the resource provider can run the requested job. And so we're, that's why we're adding traces there, is we want to make sure that that is all working correctly, and that we're making good matches, and we aren't sending resource providers jobs that aren't appropriate for them. They can't run, they don't have capacity in one way or another. So yeah, that piece of the trace will kind of give us good information about that.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's all about the health of the network, right? It's the model of sort of having this open compute network that then jobs come in and they're just matched with, providers that can service it. There's a lot of complexity there, right? That's a kind of an understatement, right? And so being able to sort of take data on the different steps of the puzzle, it's been night and day, honestly, since we've had a little more telemetry, troubleshooting with RPs, troubleshooting with end users, it's night and day. So huge shout out for that. Thank you, Brian. Well, cool. Well, I'm not seeing any more questions from the community. I'm a little bit let down here because we need some more questions. We're not here to just hear our own voices. But anyway, we really thank everyone who joined us today. And of course, Brian and Logan, thank you for your time. And just keep moving, keep pushing, keep building. The community is awesome. We're here for you. And we'll see you on the next one. We have an AMA as always every week on Wednesday. The next one, so we alternate, next week will be with Steve and Tao Sheng, our fantastic coworkers based in Australia and in China. And so they do the AMA at a time that's, I believe is 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is much more convenient for people on sort of the eastern side of the globe. And so do check out the AMA then. And then we will be back, Logan and I will be back not next week, the week after, same time for the next AMA. So with that, I will let you all depart, and thank you all so much. Take care.
Thanks, Brian.